All right, and we're back. And it's COMP392 in the winter 2016 semester. It's week 4, lesson 4, part 2. That should really be part 1. And I apologize for the interruption we had earlier today, but it is what it is. I guess it was kind of the plan, but it's, I guess, February 1st. Let's go into it a little bit. So again, lab 1, which I was or lab 2, which I was talking to before we kind of kicked this off, is all about deploying the simple app that you were making, 3JS, or if you want it, some people ask, is it okay to use assignment 1? Well, if you're done assignment 1, that's a good indicator that you know what you're doing. Yes, it's okay, right? Or if you're going to use CreateJS, that's fine too, because if you're in COMP397, I'm okay, because that means you know how to do the auto deployment. But let's say you don't know how to do the auto deployment and you need help, right? This is what this lab is about. It's going to give you 2%. Which for most of you will boost your marks a little bit, because those 2% will be free 2%, right? Because you know what to do. So let's try this out. So if we go back up to what we did last day here in the course, if I go to GitHub, and if I go to Centennial College, and if I look at COMP392, if I look at that for a second, notice that we have lesson 1, 2, and 3 demo, right? I'm going to do a lesson 4 demo just from the get-go, scratch, right? But we're going to base it on lesson 3, because lesson 3 has some basic things we talked about last week, right? Like, for example, under scripts, we have our core objects, right? Which we used. And we also did some objects, a game object, a point class, and so on. Some other things that we kind of created. So that's kind of a good one to start with for now. Again, you can use any boilerplate that I've given you, any kind of anything that I've given you up on GitHub, you can certainly use for assignment number 1 or any other assignment we have that's with us, right? That we do together, right? The demo is not bad at all as well, because we have other things that are up online that we've already deployed on GitHub. So let's do it again. We're just going to copy one of these. So even COMP392 lesson 3 demo is fine. We'll just make it lesson 4 demo for the auto deployment. We'll call it auto deployment. Okay, so let's try this out and show you how it works. Any one of these two, like I said, works. So here's COMP392, and I've got my lesson 3 demo. What do I need to do for those people who are really smart? I want to base my new project off my old project. What's the first thing I need to do? Well, renaming it, we'll just rename the old one. That's not good. Copy is the answer, right? So I'm going to copy this thing. I know it's kind of simple and silly, but people don't know how to do this. And I can paste it somewhere up on another place, or just copy in the same place and rename it. Let's copy in the same place and rename it. So paste. And notice how it's going to say copy. Even on Windows, it'll do the same thing. And then I don't want to rename this. I want to call this we'll say Azure. We'll call it Azure. And we'll make it lesson 4, right? So lesson 4 Azure. Okay, we got a lesson 4 Azure. I want to put it up on inside Visual Studio here. And I'll drag and drop this to do this. So this is our lesson 4 Azure. Right now, we need to get rid of our Git repository, because our Git repository points to lesson 3 demo, right? So to do that on the Mac, you could open in Terminal. And under Terminal, what you want to do here, like we showed you last time, is remove the hidden Git repository, the Git folder. So I'm going to say remove on the Mac -RF for force and recursive, and we're going to target the .git folder. On the Windows machine, if you can actually see all files and folders, you right-click and you click delete on the .git folder that's hidden. It's part of your project, right? That's what you do on the Windows side. So you have to enable viewing hidden files and folders in order for you to do that. All right. So once you've deleted the Git folder, now the first step I need to do is, what's my first step to initialize a repository locally? Git init. So git space init. This is all on the command line, right? So what that does is it creates that hidden folder again, that Git folder that I'm going to take my snapshots and put them there, right? From an auto deployment perspective. That's the first thing I do. Next piece, I've got these 99 plus files up here, right? Notice how I have a git ignore file that's here, and my git ignore file ignores node modules and Bower components, but doesn't ignore typings and everything else. This is what you want, because if you ignore your scripts lib, these ones, it will never deploy on Azure, because there's no folders, there's no libraries. You need to have these libraries enabled. Don't include those in your git ignore file, or they will not work. All right. So that means there's 99 changes. I can include them all here. I'm going to do it all by command line though for now. So I'm going to go back to command line and go, how do I stage all the files? I want to stage all my files in my project. Git add dot. It's going to stage all the files. Now you might get different feedback if you're working on a Windows machine. You'll get some of these files with the line endings. That's one thing. Okay, now I've got it. What's the next step? I need the third step. I need to make a commit. If I don't do a commit, then I don't create a friendly name for my files that are staged, right? And then I won't be able to do anything more. So I need to do a commit, git commit. What's the -m stand for again? Message. Initial commit is the way we want to say it, or first commit. There we go. So we've got that piece done. I'm going to use clear for my Mac or CLS for Windows to clear the screen. Okay, so I've got the screen cleared. I've got my stuff done locally. Now I need to do some stuff remotely. Let's see if we can do that. So I'm going to go up on GitHub. I need to create a remote repository, right? So here's my github.com. I'm going to go into Centennial College. Now for you, it's going to be different. And under Centennial College, I want to create a new repository. So here we are. So I'm going to say COMP397, and we're going to call it, did I call it Lesson 4 Azure? Is that what I called it? Hold on. I'll kill myself here. Yes, Lesson 4 Azure. Lesson 4 Azure. Here we go. Azure, right? COMP397 was wrong. COMP392. Lesson 4 Azure. That's what it should be, right? And then I'm going to click Create Repository. There we go. So now that I have a repository, it's a container for my files. Right now, there's nothing up there in the cloud. I need to push everything up. And what do I do? What's the easiest and fastest way to get that connected on terminal? I could type in git add remote add origin, or I could just copy and I could paste it in my terminal, right, and press enter. Now once I've connected, the next step is I want to push, and I'll give you this one. You just git push -u origin master. I could copy it or I could type it. I'll just type it this time. So I'm faster probably doing this than copy paste. And then press enter. Now you may have to put in your credentials if you haven't fixed that problem, right? And the problem, you have to create a global credentials file in order for it not to ask you to log in every single time, right? It's different on every machine, so I'm not going to show you. All right, so, but basically once you've done that, if I refresh, notice how I have everything ready except for this. I didn't do this piece, COMP392 Lesson 3 Demo. I should have changed this up so it says COMP392 Lesson 4 Azure. So I'm going to fix that up right now, and I'm going to go into my local project here. I'm going to go into my README file and change these minor things. So Lesson 4 Azure is what it's going to say, right? All right, that's the one thing I'm going to do there. And then, so my readme.md file is done. And I want to definitely change my index.html to also show that. So that's the other place that it shows that. So Lesson 4, right, Azure, there we go. Save that too. So a couple places that I've made a couple changes here. If there was another thing, if I had a bower.json file, which in this case I do, I'm going to change it there too. So I'm going to Lesson 4 Azure. I'm going to change everywhere so it says what it's supposed to say. Right now, for you guys, this might not be so important for you, but it is for me, right? And also this is really important too, which is your home page for your repository. When you do your, when you build your development environment, it may not be important in our class, but in real life, you want to make sure that this makes sense, right? For everybody who downloads and installs your project, right? So we need to get that, and of course, we're going to get that up online from GitHub. So I'm going to grab this from GitHub and go back into our project and just copy paste to replace this link, right? Now it's not that big of a deal. I could have typed it as well, but might as well copy paste it. Okay, good. So that's changed. And anywhere else, if I have anywhere else I want to change it, anything that's linked to my files. For example, if I had a node project, my package.json file, I'd probably have to change that too. But I'm good. I've changed all the files. I'm going to say File, Save All, and I have a few changes now. Notice I have 1, 2, 3 changes. Again, using the command line. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say git add dot git commit -m, and we'll say updated a project to reflect new repository. There we go. And I'll say git push. And I'm not going to use the -u this time. Just origin master, and it's going to update those files, so it'll be up to date. So if I go check back on GitHub, and if I refresh, Notice now that it should say COMP392 Lesson 4 Azure, right? So for COMP392. Okay, good. So I'm up to date. I've got my my GitHub, my external file, my external folders. I've got my my local repository and my remote repository. They've both been configured. That's good. And now I want to auto deploy to Azure. First of all, I need a space. I need a container for my Azure website. All right. So that means I got to go to Azure. And for me to do that, I'm going to use the new portal. So I'm going to say portal.azure.com, right? And under portal.azure.com, this is for every assignment we do together, right? This is what I want you to do. And also, if you're with me in other projects, we're going to do the same thing. You're going to do this plus, click this plus button, or if it looks like this for you, it might look like this. I've just closed it up, so I've hidden that, so it goes plus. Then you're going to choose web and mobile. So I'm going to slow down a little bit now, right? You're going to click web app. Now, if you subscribe properly to Azure, it's not going to ask you to sign in or sign up. If it asks you to sign up over here, something's wrong. You've done it. You haven't completed your Azure sign up. And again, what they recommend from Microsoft, and we've kind of communicated with the technical evangelists at Microsoft. The one thing they always say as a support problem is try and do this thing inside of an incognito window or an in private window if you're using Edge. And there's other ways of doing it so it doesn't cache your files. They know that there's a caching issue with Azure. It's a known issue for Microsoft. So when you log into Azure for the first time, and if you're having this problem, like for example, if it's showing up here your school account, right, not your Hotmail or your Outlook account, the Microsoft account, something is wrong. You didn't do it right. It should say your Outlook or Microsoft account, not your school account, if you've done it correctly. Okay, I think Gmail might work as well. So once you've done that, now you need a name for your service. And this service name has to be unique across the entire Azure website's domain, which means I have to make a unique name. And of course, the easiest ones for me is COMP397 winter 2016 lesson 4 as an example, and then Azure, right? And that's kind of a unique name. No one's going to have that ugly name, right? And now my subscription says pay as you go because I don't have DreamSpark, but you guys do. And that's what your subscription should say. If you see pay as you go here, that means you've done something incorrect, right? Or you don't have access for whatever reason. You didn't get that, you didn't follow the steps, right? Okay, so what you do is you kind of go all the way to the bottom. Notice how there's a thing that says pin to the dashboard. That dashboard is the first thing we saw, which I'm going to show you in a second. You don't have to click this on, but it's just easier to find your app that way. Okay, I'm going to click Create. And when I do that, it's going to start deploying my app on Azure. It's going to create a space for me, right? That's what it's going to do. And it's going to make a space for me where it's going to deploy. Notice it's going to try and deploy it way over here. That's where it's pinning it, right? That's fine. I've got several other things that I've been using to pin already up here. Like, for example, the 3JS demo we did earlier, it's up here. And there's other ones. There's, I've done. But notice how we have a deployment space for this, right? So it says deployment's done. Now you have one piece of what you need for your lab 2. You need this link, right? That's one link you need. But the next piece is actually connecting GitHub to Azure. And the way to do that, of course, is to scroll down until we hit continuous deployment. Yes? This page? After you create your container, it'll take you there. It'll take you, if you wait long enough, it'll take you, when it's finished deploying, it'll take you there to that site. All right, now, when you get to this page, right, if you go down, you want to scroll to the bottom where it says, or to the side here where it says Publishing. You want to go to the Publishing section, and you want to click Continuous Deployment. Okay, Continuous Deployment. When you go there, and if I click on Configure Request Required Settings, it's going to give me some options. One of them is GitHub. Now notice there's other ones. You could use Visual Studio Team Services, OneDrive, Dropbox, all kinds of other possibilities. GitHub is the one I'm asking you to use. Bitbucket is not a bad second option, as well as a local Git repository if you really wanted to. I don't recommend this one. Use GitHub. Okay, so click GitHub, and now it's going to ask you, well, which organization or account are you going to use? For you, you're only going to have one. I have several. So I'm going to use, of course, the one that looks at Centennial College, because that's where we are. And then it's going to ask me for my project. It's going to bring up the latest project that I made, typically. on the top. So notice that COMP392 Lesson 4 Azure is right here on the top as an option. I'm going to click that. So now I've targeted the GitHub repository remote that I'm using. And there's the master branch. I can also, if I had more than one branch, I could target that one. For example, if I had a master and if I had a production branch, I could have made a branch called production, right? And my production branch could be the final branch that I'm using that I'm going to use for production. I could use that branch, not the master branch, deployed to, or other ones to deploy up online, okay? But I'm going to leave it at the master branch as a default. All right, so I'm going to press OK. Notice that once I've pressed OK, it's going to go out and start doing the continuous deployment on its own. It's going to go out to GitHub as long as you've given an authorization to do so, because you have to give it authorization for the first time. You may have to say, yes, I agree, use my GitHub, right? And once you've done that, notice how it's doing stuff. And you have to wait for the little spinny thing, our little icon that tells us that it's done. And once this is done spinning, then you notice that it's going to move from a pending state to a deployed state or a completed state, right? Once it's changed states and you know that it's ready, I can certainly click on my link and then it should run my project the way it should be. So I'm going to wait till that's done. And it takes a couple seconds. Sometimes actually what happens is it shows, there it is, the check mark. It shows that it's not completed, but it actually is, right? So there, that check mark means it's been deployed. Now it doesn't mean your site works. This is where you have to do your testing. It means it's been deployed. So now remember the criteria is your index.html cannot be hidden in another folder. So for example, if you're using something like Visual Studio 2013 or 2015, a lot of times what it does is it hides your index.html instead of another folder. That's not what you want to do, right? Otherwise it won't launch properly, right? Now there are other deployment options for Microsoft Visual Studio 2013 or 2015 where you don't have to do this step. You can do everything through that tool. We're not going to show you that today, but that's the one thing you can do. Notice if I click on my COMP397 Winter 2016, this link that Azure provides us, azurewebsites.net, if I click onto it, and if everything goes well, I should see my, my application I built last day, which actually allows me to rotate, and it's kind of aligned everything according to what we have in Blender, which is what we did. So this is the total package here. So we've done everything from one to the other. Let's go back to deployments for a second to go through this. And the reason why I'm going a little bit quicker is because just from a time perspective, we're running out of time. But let's take a look at this. So again, two links you need for your lab 2, which is your continuous deployment lab for 2% of your final mark. You need this link, which is your GitHub, whatever link you set up here. And again, if this is your assignment 1, it would be assignment 1 that you're going to hand in twice, once for this lab and once for your assignment number 1. Okay? So I need this link for GitHub. And then the next link I need is for the link that's given to you by Microsoft for your final site. For example, COMP397-w2016-lessons4.azure.azurewebsites.net. That's the big long web address that I have for this particular project, right? Notice how I included, again, everything that I did from last day, including the light source and everything else, because all we did was copy our project. So you actually seen a couple things here, not just continuous deployment, but how to create a project based on another project, which I'm going to ask you to do in the future. For example, hint on a midterm exam. I'm going to give you a midterm exam. Here's your project files, and everybody is going to base their files off of my files, right? That's going to be a bit of a challenge because you may have never seen my files before, right? So you're going to take my files and you're going to say, okay, here's my midterm exam, right? I'm going to base it off here. And there's going to be pieces missing that you're going to fill in because we don't have a lot of time on a midterm. We only have 2 hours and you're going to deploy some kind of app, right? So know that you're going to have to do this. And it's going to be live. One of the things I'm going to ask you on your exam is deploy it live on Azure. Do your continuous deployment, right? So again, what is continuous deployment for those people who don't remember? What is it? Why do I use continuous deployment? Peoples.
When you make changes on the GitHub, it's automatically deployed to Azure.
Because Azure's watching. That's what's happening. Azure's continuously watching that GitHub repo, and it's a good practice if we're going to do some quick development or whatever, or if we need it to be live on a server somewhere, especially at 3JS, right? And if we're using, for COMP397, we use Create.js. Both require a lot of times a server for it to run properly, and this is a great way to test because it's a real live server and it's worldwide. Okay, that's why we do we do deployment from GitHub to Azure. And continuous deployment is a great tactic because, again, I can test as much as I want locally, get it to the point where I'm ready to go, right? I can make many commits locally. And then when I do my final commit on GitHub that day, boom, I've got my changes, and it's automatically in one step deployed to Azure. Or another cloud service, if you're using another cloud service. Even if you're doing something like, and I'll tell you right now, it exists on other cloud services like DigitalOcean, or if you're using something like Heroku, if you have a Node app, right? We don't have a Node app, so we can't do that right now. But if we did, Heroku is another good choice, right? Okay, so that's really that's it in a nutshell, how to do that lab number 2. Any questions around lab 2? It's due tonight at midnight. If you don't have it done, there's a great opportunity to do it in-house. Save your time. Don't do it later on if you don't have to, right? Because you're gonna, it'll just be another thing to do tonight. And I'm sure you have other professors giving you other work that's due. So please get her done right now, and then you don't have to think about it anymore. And you get your 2%. That means like 4% for today. Today's worth a good 4% of your final mark, right? If you do everything properly. If you get a 5 out of 5, right, on your, on your quiz, and you get this for 2%, it's worth 4% of your final mark today, right? So it's an important day. Okay, let me stop recording this one, which means we're going to be a little bit off in terms of numbering for the next day, for Wednesday. We're going to continue with our stuff that we're going to talk about today on Blender. I'm going to talk about some lighting and cameras. Okay, that's where we're going to move to next. And let's do that. So I'm going to stop recording.